What's up, guys? Today we're going to be camming the SI finally. I just got the valve cover popped off. Going to get her jacked up, put her to TDC, and then start removing the timing chain tensioner. Going to replace that too, and throw in some 06 TSX cams. Alright, so next thing that I did is I got this 1/2-inch breaker bar, 1/2-inch extension with a 19 going to the crank pulley. And I just twisted it to where it's at top dead center. Little arrows right there that line up on both cams there. And I'm gonna check, there's a marking on the crankshaft pulley. If you go underneath it, you can see that it's pointing straight up. All right, then there's 3 bolts you gotta take off, 3 10mm that hold on the timing chain tensioner cover. You can use a flathead, pry off that little cover there. And then what I'm going to do is rotate the crank back just a little bit. And then there's a little spot to put a thumbtack, and you hold the tensioner in with that. Alright, so I rotated the crank back a little bit, and that orange tab is going to come up. And then when that tab is up, you put the pin in there, and then you're going to rotate the crank clockwise again to put some resistance on it, and it'll hold that pin right in place. So that'll lock your tensioner all the way in the in position, that way you can pull it out easier. Actually, there's only 2 10mm that hold it on, so after you fight with that for a little bit, you'll be able to get it out. See how it's retracted in the in position there? That's the new one. I'm going to have to push that one back and put the pin in it before I put it in. Next step though, what we're going to do is take off the cam caps up here and take off this guard here over the timing chain. And then we should be able to pull out the cams here in a little bit. Alright, once you take off that cam cover there, it is going to make like a snapping sound because the tension releases, but what you're going to do is just pull up on the chain here. I have it bungee corded to the hood up there to hold it in place. It should slip back. Just make sure everything's in the right position as far as there's 2 marks actually. 2 marks on the cam gears that should line up. Make sure they're all lined up at the top too before you start anything. Make sure you pull it tight, that way it doesn't skip on the bottom, and then we're just going to take the rest of these cam caps off right now. Alright, we just got all the cam caps off. They were all 12 mils. I did them from inside to outside. That's how you're supposed to tighten them, but I just like to loosen them that way too. Either way, make sure you still got your tension on the timing chain there, and then I'm going to just wiggle these cams out. I'm going to pull them from the back towards me, kind of outward, and then kind of get them out from underneath the cam gear there, making sure that that tensioner or the chain stays in place. Alright, now arguably the hardest part of the job right here, I'm going to have to step on this wrench here while I break the nut loose on the VTC gear here, because I'm going to transfer this gear onto the TSX cam, so I have to get this off to switch it over. I have to step on that while pulling on this, break that nut loose. I already tried it on the TSX cam, so I know it's going to be a pain, but we're going to get that off real quick. Alright, just as I predicted, this was the hardest part. Literally had to put my tire with the jack on it and a 24 mil wrench there, and then put all my body weight onto that breaker bar to get that nut off. Alright, I just got that RBC cam gear switched over from my stock cam over to the TSX cam. Those beefy lobes there. We're about to put in the exhaust side first actually, which is this one here, and then we're going to throw the intake in. Also, make sure you torque that to 80 foot-pounds on the intake. I didn't have to take off the exhaust, but just 80 pounds on the intake. I believe it's 50 on the exhaust if you're switching over that gear, but I just left it on. Alright, so we torqued all these to 16 foot-pounds of torque. That's the torque spec for them. And then pretty much what I did is I went down to the crank here, and if you feel on the top of it, there's a little notch, and there's a little arrow you can feel on the side of the block. I can't really show you because the lighting isn't good, but you'll be able to feel it and you'll be able to see that. Make sure that's lined up. Make sure your cam gears, see that arrow right there? Bingo, right on that arrow there. And then this one's just right on the top, just straight dead top. And then we're just going to throw the tensioner on and hope for the best. Alright, I pushed in the new tensioner, put the thumbtack back in it, now we're about to put this in there. Alright guys, I got the tensioner in, I'm about to seal it up. I just twisted it around. It's either like one tooth off on the crank pulley or it's perfect. It's borderline, it's really hard to tell. So I'm going to assume it's perfect. I really hope so, but I'm going to cap that off with the put the plate back on it, and then we're going to start it up.